You're welcome. 1, 2. Oh, perfect, perfect. Hey, everybody, welcome. Okay. Welcome to Istanbul for those of you that haven't been here for long. So I will be talking, I'm with Rodki, and I will be talking about how we can build sustainable open source projects. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Lefteris Karapetsas. I've been in Ethereum since the beginning, since 2014. Worked on the foundation in the Solidity compiler and the C++ client. And later, I'm very sorry, but I worked on the DAO, the DAO, with Christoph Jens, and the destruction that came afterwards, the hack, the aftermath, the cleanup. I also worked on Raiden, so I was a developer, the developer lead there, which was a L2 payment channels network for Ethereum that didn't really catch up. And I'm the founder of Rodki, which is an open source portfolio tracking and accounting tool. So, open source, right? This is a word that makes everyone's mouth fill with pride, with joy. It's something that gives people hope. It's something that I have devoted my career mostly in, but unfortunately, it has been diluted a lot as a term. So, what is open source? Just open code, so just code being visible does not make something open source. It may sound a bit, weird because, it's open source, so it should be just the code being open. That's so very far from the truth. Just the code being visible is not open source. The definition of open source is these 10 bullet points, 10 commandments, you may say, that are agreed upon by most of the developers of the world. You will find it in the OSI, the Open Source Initiative, or the FSF, the Free Software Foundation. So what is open source? It needs to be freely redistributable. That means that you need to be able to just take the code and distribute it freely. The code needs to be open. It needs to have a source code open. You need to be able to derive works. This is where most people say no. So you need to be able to create any derived work from the code, like copy, fork it, create a new project on top of it. This is what most people misunderstand about open source. This is a requirement. If you can't do that, then it is not open source. You need to maintain the integrity of the author's source code. You need to have no discrimination against any persons or groups. You can't say something like, I don't want Asian people to use my software or something. You cannot have discrimination against fields. There are some libraries that started saying, I don't want any crypto projects to use my library. I'm sorry, my dude, but your library is under an open source license, and that means that it cannot require any such thing. The license needs to be distributed along with the project. It must not be specific to a product, so I cannot make open source software and say only the Rodki product can use this. It's not open source then. It must not restrict other software, and it must be technology neutral. So you cannot say, I only want, so this only must be used by Intel CPUs, not AMD or something like that. So then, what exactly is when the code is open, but we have all these other restrictions? This is something that's quite sadly seen in the crypto space lately, with Aave, with Uniswap. They have a business source license, which is restrictive. It says that you cannot use this software in production anywhere else. You can look at it, but not use it. But they have a delayed open source clause, which says that after a few years, it will become open source. There are other non-crypto projects like Redis that has a commons clause license that is not open source. MongoDB that has the SSPL, and so on and so forth. So, but then, Lefteris, you ask me, why are you building open source? Why would anybody build open source? Why would you just give something out to the world like that? Therein lies the beauty of open source. You create something, and you give it out freely without any restrictions. It sounds crazy, right? But yet, there is the beauty of it. You're creating something that will last, will probably outlast you, and you're giving it out freely to the world. So why do that? There are many reasons. You are encouraging community involvement a lot by doing open source. As an example, I built the Emacs editor Solidity mode, and when I was writing a lot of Solidity code, I don't do that anymore, and as such, I stopped maintaining it. It needed maintenance though. People used it. So at some point, 2 new people came up as maintainers and asked me to just pick it up, and I let them. And it lives on without me doing anything. This is how open source community involvement can help projects. Of course, open source is all about transparency. This is something really, really amazing about the term. So you can really verify that whatever someone says about their project is actually indeed true. Exactly because of all these features, open source software tend to be reliable, have high quality, and be flexible. Of course, if you just take a small project and make it open source, it will not automatically inherit these properties, but big projects that have users and are open source, they tend to become reliable and be highly flexible just because of the nature of too many eyes, of many eyes working on them. Open source attracts talent. So by creating this thing and giving it out to the world and everybody saying, okay, what does this project need? What does Go Ethereum need? Is there something that I can do? What does Rodkey need? Is there any PR that I can do? You go, you create features, you create patches, you create new stuff on an open source code, and then later you can go and flex to others and say, okay, you see this feature in Go Ethereum, I made it. You see this feature in Rodkey, I made it. And potential future employers also look at this. I can tell you because I have a company that has the open source team behind Rodkey, and I'm hiring people, and the first thing that I will ask is, show me what you have contributed to open source. Another big advantage is that there is no, by design, there is no vendor lock-in in open source. There is no walled gardens. Money. Okay, so how do you make money with open source? That is a very big problem. Why? Because you make this, you give it freely to the world, and then you say, just take it. So how do you make money? Most companies are VC funded right now. If you go and talk to a VC and you tell them, you know, I am creating this open source project, and then he will ask you, what is your moat? What can I capture? What you're creating is basically the total opposite of what a VC would look for in a project. It's nobody's intellectual property. You can't really sell the software as it is, as just as software, because everybody can copy it. You can't hide anything in the code, like API keys or anything like that, because of the full transparency. Our sector has started, the crypto field has started introducing ways to fund open source, and later started renaming it a bit to include other stuff under the umbrella of public goods. Public goods is a very nice thing, but what the heck is public goods? So the definition says that it's something that is non-excludable and non-rivalrous. Big words, I don't know what that means. English is not my first language. So imagine something like the fresh air or the park, something that everybody can access, and there is no limitation at all whatsoever in them accessing this. This is a public good. Somehow, in crypto, we have managed to corrupt this. The worst example has been the amount of applications in RetroPGF lately, where we saw closed source software as a service, closed centralized paid services. We saw payment-gated Discord chats in the applications. And my favorite one, running a NETH validator, calling it a public good because you are doing something good for the network, completely ignoring the crypto economic incentives that you're being paid by the system for running a validator, and just wanting basically someone to fund your validator. So these are not public goods, yet crypto is a very optimistic field. We are very positive. We want to do good. There are outside forces that are coming in, and they want to take advantage of everybody's goodwill and essentially capture the ideals of crypto and just say, oh yeah, everything is a public good, so let's give us more money. So this vagueness is creating a very big problem. When everything is a public good, well, then nothing ends up being a public good. Words lose their meaning. It's something that really, really concerns me in the crypto field, that we have lost the sense of meaning in words. This talk is about open source, though. Open source is the very definition of what is a public good. You create something, you give it freely out in the world. It's there. Everybody can copy the code, make something on top of it. If something happens to you, anybody can continue. And there's a story for that. This is very small, and no way to read it, but I will try to explain it. I started notDEVCON a long time ago. Now we're a bigger team. 2 years ago, someone in Berlin, where we are based, forked our code, put it under a closed source license. Basically, they made a closed source product in a centralized server somewhere. We followed the legal route to actually force them to follow the AGPL license that notDEVCON has. We spent about 5,000 to 10,000 euros in legal fees, and the only thing we achieved was them to say, okay, our bad, we will not do this anymore. They proceeded to take grants from companies in the field, namely Balancer, which didn't really respond to my requests that this is wrong. And they just tried to farm grants. In the end, after 2 years, I realized that they are dead. They don't exist anymore. All of their users lost their data, lost their time that they had. All of the public goods grants that they got wasted because they were never a public good. They're dead. They just don't exist anymore. They left nothing behind. So how do we do funding then for public goods? You can try for public goods, sorry, for open source projects. So as an open source project, what should you do in order to do to get funding? Back when crypto didn't exist, what we would do is reach out to the users, tell them, you know what, I have a rent to pay, you know, like it costs money, please donate buttons here, donate buttons there, donate everywhere. Write blog posts, explain why your thing is important, the open source software that you're creating. Ask your users for help. What we have managed to do in crypto, it's really amazing that we have created some new methodologies. Namely, Gitcoin started this with the quadratic funding, but there is more. Now there is also CRL fund, radical drips. The idea there is that users, so some big sponsor gives a very big matching pot, and this is shared between all the projects that participate in a round. The users who vote by donating, they also vote where does the big matching pot go. This is a very interesting way of funding open source projects. There are also other platforms, like retroactive public goods funding from Optimism. Optimism is an L2 chain that basically gives you, it takes the sequencer fees, and a part of this sequencer fees, so the fees for running the network, are going to public goods. They have a very beautiful system, the retro public goods funding, that allows you to apply, and you are being rewarded for past work. And Octant, probably the logo is not visible, it's something that used to be Golem, for those that may remember them. They gathered a huge ETH treasury. They don't know what to do with it anymore, and they said, we want to do good. So they started staking it, and people who hold GLM are essentially deciding to lock it. And what do they do with it? Yeah, they decide either to send the stake to themselves, so take the money, or give it to public goods. And most of them are giving it to public goods. This is why this was created. There is also many companies that you can get grants from. So if you have an open source project that does something that would help a big company like, I don't know, Uniswap, Lido, or the DeFi protocols, you can apply to them. There is a lot of money to be made by doing open source work for them. So your users are also, again, not just donating, but many of them are willing, at least from the projects that I have worked on, they are willing to pay for more stuff. They are willing to pay for support, for explanations. They are willing to pay for custom work. And especially if any of your users are big companies, use that to your advantage. You can sign SLAs with companies that you give them specific support. You can get, you can make custom parts of your software just for them. Big companies are willing to pay. Expenses as a part of an open source project is something that is pretty close to my heart, because I have had a lot of discussions. Now, I don't know if it's visible, but this is the meme about want a dragon, be realistic. What do I want? I want to be a rich open source developer. Okay, what color do you want your dragon to be then? Please be realistic. So you are not going to become rich by developing open source. If making a lot of money is what your goal is, you probably should do something different. But what you can do is create sustainable software, have a sustainable salary, and build something that will last. It's a lot more fun and rewarding than any other job I've ever had. I have worked in big companies. I've worked in Oracle. I have worked in the grinding of hating your life, hating your job. It's not worth it. Creating something that will outlast you is worth anything in the world. If you have a team, so if it's no longer just a solo project and you have a team, be honest with your team about the vision, about what it is that you want to do, but also explain to the team, because some people may have requests like, I want a salary like the Silicon Valley developers get. Explain to them that this is not sustainable. Explain the cycle of the vicious VC cycle, which is basically just bring up a new company, give them, I don't know, 200K, 150K per year. The company is dead in 6 months. 99% of the companies are dying in 6 months, then another company, then another company. This is short-sighted, this is unsustainable. We should build and think years down the line. We shouldn't think of, oh, let's just grab as much as we can and then just let the project die, my belly is full. This is not the way to think about open source. And yeah, make it fun. It should be rewarding. This is a very rewarding job. It's something that is like bringing a smile, should bring a smile to your face every day. If that's not happening, then you are not doing it correctly. At the end, I would like to talk about notDEVCON, which is an example of such a software that my team and I are developing. It's an open source and local first software, so it runs on your computer, you know, like very traditional software. It's a portfolio management, tracking, and accounting tool. It can do tracking for all of the EVM chains, Bitcoin, other chains, so generally crypto, and some traditional finance, like you know, your banks, your stocks, etc. And it's privacy preserving. All of the data is local, so the idea is to preserve the privacy of the user. I started in 2017 as a hobby project. I just wanted to do my taxes in crypto. I just needed a CLI. I made a command line tool in Python. Nothing else existed. There were some centralized services that I didn't dare to use. People ask me, how the heck are you still doing this thing? Like, seriously, how are you still alive? It doesn't show, but here it says that by striving to be sustainable. So the idea is sustainability, just build for years to come, plan for years ahead. The funding was initially invested by me. I have been in the field for a long time. I could afford it. Donations by many happy users and community. I'm humbled by the community that we have gathered around notDEVCON. You guys have been amazing to us. Everything. We have touched Gitcoin grants, Optimism, Retro, PGF, Moloch DAO, now Octant. And we've done implementation grant agreements with many companies. And we have also a product on top of the open source code that gives us a revenue from premium subscriptions that unlocks some extra limits and what else? Yes, some extra features. But we have a huge, so the idea of success is to create something that people want and value. So create a community. We have a useful product and then we encourage others to contribute. This is just some screenshots of our contributors. People contribute because they like the product and they just want to add something new. They want to solve their own problems in the product. So they start committing. You need to create modular code and docs that are welcoming for new contributors. This is something that I'm saying now as an advice to myself also, because we are trying, but it's not that great yet. You need to put a lot of hard work. Open source is not about just, hitting a card at 9 a.m. in the morning and then hitting out at 6. You need to have passion. You need to love this. It's more than 6 years of work, 14,000 commits, 98 releases, and 125 different code contributors that have made notDEVCON into what it is right now. I guess I must be running out of time, so I would just like to end with a call to action. Use open source software and build open source software. Just think in the long term. Don't think just about the next 6 months or the next weeks. We are hiring in notDEVCON, and we also welcome open source contributors. So if you want to delve into our code, and if you like what you hear here, please then check out our GitHub repository. I think the link should be in this QR. If not, notDEVCON, and you will see it. Spread the word about us. We are a small project. We don't have any marketing department. We have nothing. Yep. You guys are our marketing. So if you like what you hear, please talk about us.
1 minute.
And yeah, donate if you would like to, if you like what we're doing, and buy a premium subscription from notDEVCON.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's okay.
Okay, that's all.
It's gonna fall.